Greetings, music lovers. Welcome to another episode of the Raga Room with Deepa Joshi. In this sonorous episode, we have a guest for you. When she sings, her notes travel at the speed of the flutter of a hummingbird, so symphonically and so gracefully. Her classical Carnatic version of David Brubeck's Take 5 has made its way to the hearts of millions. It is with great pleasure that I invite Chandana Bala Kalyan to the Raga Room.
Chandana Bala Kalyan is a Carnatic classical and contemporary singer and a TEDx speaker. She is an A-graded artist both in Carnatic classical and devotional music from All India Radio. She has been performing as a soloist and with various bands across the world with artists such as Taufiq Qureshi, Sanjay Divecha, Ranjit Barot, Rajeev Raja and Trilok Gurtu. She has lent her voice for many movies in Telugu, Kannada and Tamil, most recent being RRR, Modern Love Hyderabad and Valatty. She has composed many songs which currently are a significant repertoire of her devotional project, MARMA. She is known for her versatility and the ease with which she can traverse through various genres. MARMA is a multilingual and multi-generic confluence of spiritual and philosophical poetry of the Bhakti and the Sufi saints of the Indian subcontinent presented in light classical and folk genres in contemporary fusion. She was also an invited artist to Safi International Music Festival held in Morocco to present MARMA. She is a student of Dr. S. Nataraja-Murthy, Srimati Rajamma Keshava-Murthy, Sri R.K. Srikantan, and now Sri H.S. Sudhindra. She is a recipient of many awards like the Annamayya Yuva Puraskara, M.S. Subbulakshmi Award, Nadajyoti Puraskara, and many more. She has also appeared on TV shows such as MTV Coke Studio with Amith Trivedi and several others as well. It is with great pride that I invite Chandana Bala Kalyan to the Raga Room.
Namaste, Chandanaji. Thank you so very much for coming to the Raga Room, and I'm so thrilled to be talking to you today.
Thank you so much, Deepa, for this wonderful opportunity. Thanks a lot.
We've been listening to, your music. We've been watching the content that you put out there, and something that attracts us so instantly is your smile. I think it's very inviting, and I think for anybody to like something or to get drawn to something, they have to feel belonged. I think that's what we feel with your music, that we automatically feel belonged. So, we are constantly looking for what is the next thing that you're going to bring out. So it's such a great honor to be talking to you. And I want to just, start this interview today by a quote that I read that you had written. And that was such a resonating thought for me. So I thought, why not? So I think it said, any kind of art can bring out the creative side from within. And the creative side of your personality is who you are. So I think it's really so profound that you said that, because I think art or our passion is what gives us that element that takes us on a journey towards self-discovery, learning more about ourselves. And that's something that keeps evolving. It just doesn't stop at one certain destination. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this, please.
Yeah, I think, creativity is something all of us have, irrespective of whether we are in the creative field or not, whether we are musicians or dancers or singers or poets or painters or whatever it is. I mean, irrespective of not having chosen it and identified it, we are all creative, right? Like some of us just like to decorate stuff at home, and we use a lot of creativity there. And there is a little bit of our own self that comes on to that. So because just like all the other emotions and feelings, creativity is also abstract. So we are seeing things in just thin air. We are just listening to stuff in thin air. But when we are able to give it a certain form, say in the form of decorating something or by painting something or even drawing something as simple as a rangoli, I think there is an expression of that abstract emotion that we experience, which is constantly, I think, there. It's constantly brimming in us to be creative, just to do something unique, something different, something that is enjoyable, something that is attractive to us, and something that kind of reflects what we are thinking. So I think that way creativity, one, it helps us to mirror our emotions and, mirror what we're feeling, our thoughts are. And so that way it is a very beautiful expression. And taking it to a more professional level, I think that energy can be extended to the listener or the viewer or somebody who's just maybe watching you on a screen or, just watching your art form. So I think, and the people who resonate with the same wavelength and that same equation enjoy it more. People who resonate with a different kind of an equation, a different kind of a thing, enjoy something else maybe better. They may not enjoy what you are presenting as much. So I think that way creativity kind of is an expression of yourself and an extension. It helps others also kind of resonate with that expression, I guess.
It's actually a very beautiful thought. And what you brought up about abstract, this is something that even I keep thinking about. The hypothesis of abstract thought is always, unknown to us. It's alien to us unless we have a class of ideas that is moving towards it. And finally, it starts to take shape and we socialize with it and we get comfortable with it. And then it becomes a part of our own. And sometimes to an extent where from us, or like artists like yourself, it is available to world at large. And what you also said about creativity is such a wonderful thought, a profound thought that all of us have it. And thanks to the universe for giving us different kinds of ways in which we can engage our soul, in which we can discover ourselves. And to make it so beautiful for people who have similar wavelengths, it could be anything to connect with. So it's a lovely process, I think.
Yeah.
And I did read about, one of the, where you had mentioned that when you were younger, your guru had asked you to translate some shlokas of Sanskrit to English. And how you got into the bhakti movement. And I want to definitely elaborate talk about your collective MARMA, but please do talk to us about this experience.
Yeah, so basically I am born into a family of musicians, and so my father is a violinist, and he taught me to sing even before I could actually learn to read and write and stuff like that. So and ever since I started singing, it was mostly Carnatic classical music that I was singing. And in extension, it was devotional poetry, because most of what I was singing at that time was either about a deity, or it was about an aspect of devotion, or it was, say, Purandara-dasa's compositions or Kanaka-dasa's padas and Haridasa Sahitya or certain bhajans and stuff like that. So bhakti poetry has been something that has actually been there in my kind of my whole existence. Actually has been about it even before I could realize that is a strong dominant aspect of my love for literature. And then I just kept continuing. I used to sing a lot of Devarnamas and all of that stuff. In fact, people used to request for a lot of Devarnamas in my concerts, and they used to wait for that fag end of the concert when you're presenting devotional music for just 20 minutes. That's when people used to wait for also, to listen to Devarnama. So this, because I had a connect with it, and I was able to sing them in a manner that was kind of appealing or impressive, or probably that's something that they could immerse themselves in. So when I was a few years ago, I think it was about 15 years ago, my Guruji, Sri H.S. Sudhindra sir, he was working on a book called Ugabhoga Darpana. So the book had already been published in Kannada. So basically, these are Kannada shlokas, as you would call it. They are Ugabhogas, as in these set of compositions. They are not necessarily in any rhythmic meter. They are not in any thala, but they are prose poetry. So there is a rhyme, or because of the rhyme, when you read it, it sounds like poetry. So he gave me these Ugabhogas, and I think there were about 850 odd Ugabhogas, and he asked me to translate them to English. And at first I thought that I just have to translate, take that one line and just translate it. And I thought it would be I knew that it would not be a very easy task, but then I knew that I thought it wouldn't take a very long time for me. But then when I started translating, I realized that there are so many things that I had probably been singing, probably been, exposed to, but I had never really thought about it from the perspective that it was explained to me, like in those compositions. And there were so many things that I didn't understand. There were many mythological references which I hadn't known about. The small little stories within stories, stories within stories. All those things were actually, just written in one line. So I did not know the mythological references. And also the Navavidha Bhakti Margas, the way they were depicted and the way they were explained in the compositions, sometimes it is not very explicit. It's like, it's more like the technical term for that is a mundige, where it is, it's like a riddle in which if you, unless and until you crack that riddle, you will not know what the message is. So there were certain lines which were like that, which I would not understand. So at that time, my Guru Bandhu, Hariharan, who is also a very good singer, he actually, in fact, as per the advice of my Guruji Sudhindra sir, he took that literature to Khagavara Dasa, one of the only, I think, surviving Dasas of the Haridasa tradition, who lives in Bangalore, and he helped us in getting the actual context in which those Ugabhogas might have been written. And then from there, we started translating them. So it took about 8 to 9 months for us to complete that task. But I think at that time, when I was reading these Ugabhogas, I felt that, I should sing about these compositions, sing these compositions out to a lot more people, because it was very beautiful. The way Guru Bhakti was explored, for example, or the way Nirguni Bhakti was explored, or the way Madhura Bhakti was explored, so many aspects of Bhakti. I thought I should, explore this, and I have to make a concert presentation. And then I thought, I live in Bombay, and all these compositions are in Kannada. So I thought, how will I make a Hindi-speaking or a Marathi-speaking person, understand? How will I make them understand these compositions? I will have to sit and paraphrase everything for them, or I'll have to explain everything and then sing. So I thought, should I make it such a way, or should I, just translate to Hindi? So I started translating. And my Hindi is not really one of my strongest subjects, because I only did 10th standard Hindi, and that too, it was a third language. And I realized that it was not poetic at all. I couldn't rhyme to save my life in Hindi. So I was thinking, how am I going to do this? And then I just chanced upon Kabir's poetry.
Yeah.
And when I started reading Kabir's poetry, from whatever little bit of explanation that was given, I realized that ultimately all the elevated souls said the same thing. Whether it was the way Purandaradasa, Kanakadasa talked about Guru Bhakti, or whether it was Annamacharya talking about Shrungara Bhakti, or the Tattva Padas, or whether it was Kabir talking about the how the Lord is one, whichever faith you followed, in spite of the different faiths that you followed, the Lord was just one. So, and to find the Lord within. So when I started reading various poems of Kabir, dohas of Kabir, I realized that the material is already there. I don't need to sit and translate anything. All I need to do is explore and search, find it, go find and seek it. And that is actually the genesis of MARMA. That's where MARMA took birth. And I started reading up a lot of material of course, Dasa Sahitya, Annamacharya's compositions, Tyagaraja Swami's compositions. I already fortunately had a little bit of idea about the kind of bhakti that he explored, and a little bit of Andal, and then, of course, the Varkari poets, being in Maharashtra, Namdev, Tukaram, Soirabai, Janabai, and then Mirabai, of course, and Ashtapadis, and also, a little bit of Sufi devotional poetry written by Bulle Shah and Amith Trivedi. So I just picked up compositions that really resonated with what I wanted to say. And somehow at the end of about, a couple of years or so, I had a good collection of compositions that I wanted to sing and I wanted to present as a concert. And that's how MARMA kind of emerged. And there's a lot more to talk about MARMA. MARMA is, like I said, it's a confluence. That entire concert is actually like a confluence of devotional, philosophical, and spiritual poetry by the Bhakti and the Sufi saints of the Indian subcontinent, and also an exploration of different classical, light classical, and folk traditions of our country. So for me, it's more like just the way there are different paths to devotion, paths of devotion to find the Lord who is within you. So similarly, there are different genres of music that kind of help me explore the musician who is within me. So I have not restricted myself to any one genre of singing with these compositions. So I also sing Abhanga, I sing Devarnama, I sing bhajans, I sing Kavali, I sing Meera Bhajan, I sing an Ashtapadi, I sing a Heer, which is a folk tradition from the northern part of India. And now the newest edition is also a Shabad, which is written by Nanak Sahab. And, so there are various editions like that. And it's a very open thing, because everything can be included in it. Anything that is written that talks about the divine can be included in MARMA.
Wow. Wow. So beautiful. Actually, elevated souls elevate souls. For somebody like me who got into Raga Room with very little knowledge, the only thing that was visceral to me was how I felt when I listened to music. So with that very basic thought, I got into this initiative. But by talking to artists like yourselves, by talking to people who have gone through this inward journey, so you somehow get drawn into it, and all of these beautiful things that you said. As a South Indian household, we all grow up learning, Swarajatis, Geetas, Kritis. So just like you learn a sport or you learn your math, you learn music. So, and when we are learning Dasrapada, it's actually teaching us, because they're so simple. And that is going to be something that is going to be applicable to generations before and many, many generations after. So it's very simple, very moral, but it's actually teaching you something, so that there's already one layer that's already happened inside your head. And then there is music that is giving the bhava to what you already know. And correctly, like what you were just talking about, the different bhakti movement from different parts of India that you just brought up, and each in their own home turf, each being very comfortable in their own form of speech, their languages, and the music that followed with it, it gives it its own exclusivity for that particular genre, and more power to people like you, that you bring it all under one roof and under one umbrella, and you make it available to all of us. And just taking a step back here and also coming back to Uga Boga, My grandmother used to sing many of those, and we have grown up listening to Uga Bogas. And if I may, if I can ask you anything that you like, if you could just sing a couple lines, please.
Yeah, sure. This is one of the oldest Uga Bogas that I have learned. It was taught to me by my Guruji, R.K. Srikanthan sir.
Oh,
Yeah, he used to sing this composition, and he had actually composed this Uga Bhoga in the Raga Desh.
oh, how lovely.
ಪ್ರಪನ್ನ ರಕ್ಷಕನು ನೀನು ಪಾಲಿಸು ನಿನ್ನವ ನಾನು ಪ್ರಪನ್ನ ರಕ್ಷಕನು ನೀನು ಪಾಲಿಸು ನಿನ್ನವ ನಾನು ಉಪಸಾಧನವನರಿಯನು ಒಮ್ಮೆ ನಿನ್ನ ನೆನೆವೆನು ಉಪಸಾಧನವನರಿಯನು ಒಮ್ಮೆ ನಿನ್ನ ನೆನೆವೆನು ಅಪರಾಧಿ ನಾನಾದೊಡೇನು ಅಭಯಪ್ರದನು ನೀನು ಅಪರಾಧಿ ನಾನಾದೊಡೇನು ಅಭಯಪ್ರದನು ನೀನು ವಿಪರೀತ ಮಾಡದೆ ಎನ್ನ ಸಲಹೋ ಪುರಂದರ ವಿಠಲ ನಂಬಿದನು ವಿಪರೀತ ಮಾಡದೆ ವಿಪರೀತ ಮಾಡದೆ ವಿಪರೀತ ಮಾಡದೆ ಎನ್ನ ಸಲಹೋ ಪುರಂದರ ವಿಠಲ ಪುರಂದರ ವಿಠಲ ನಿನ್ನನೆ ನಂಬಿದನು. This is one of the, if I may just say a couple of lines about this Uga Bhoga.
Please.
I mean, sometimes we just overlook so many things, but when we keep singing the same lines again and again, the meaning just kind of, shows itself to us. And then the honesty and sincerity and the match with the emotions of a devotee who's so desperate. Sometimes we ourselves are in such conditions, in such situations, when we are pleading for grace, pleading for some sort of a help, some sort of a sign, some indication that we need to get out of that situation, and it's a plea after all. So in this, Purandaradasa says, Prapanna Rakshaka Neenu Palisu Ninnava Nanu. It's a complete surrender. Listen, you are my refuge. I mean, I have come to you and I surrender to you. You are the one who is supposed to take care of me. Upasadhanavanariyanu. I don't know of any other path. No other way. Upasadhanavanariyanu. Omme ninna nenavanu. I only think of you once. Then aparadhi nanadudenu. I'm a little kid. I mean, I'm like your son. I'm like your child. Aparadhi nanadare. Even if I have made a mistake, even if I have sinned, so what? Aparadhi nanadudenu. Abhaya pradanu neenu. You are the one who is supposed to give me the abhaya hasta. And the last line is so beautiful. There is a certain sense of desperation, frustration of the Lord not being convinced of why he should come. So there's a little bit of ninda also there. Little bit of ninda. So this is viparita madade. Don't act too smart, okay? It's like, sometimes we do that, isn't it? Even with our parents, sometimes we do that. We try to coax, we tell them, listen, you have to give me money for that picnic or whatever that I have to go for. And then finally, when we are still not agreeing, our kids tend to throw this accusatory tone at us. That what you can't give, my friends' parents, they are giving, why can't you give? You're supposed to give me. Come on, mama, now don't act smart. This is the language with which a child speaks to a mother. It's literally like that. Viparita madade enna salaho. Come on now. Just come down and, just bless me and do this and do this. That casualness of tone encapsulated so beautifully in poetry. I think that was what I resonated with when I started reading, Rasa Sahitya and other forms of devotional poetry, of course.
They say when you've tasted this path, there is no going back. Because
exactly. I heard somebody say this, that of all the emotions one experiences, devotion is most intoxicating.
Yeah.
It is so intoxicating. Yeah. Please go ahead.
No, I was just like recalling a conversation I had with Kaushiki Chakrabarti. She was the guest of Raga Room. And something she said was, it just hit me so strongly. She said, surrender is not for the weak. So when we surrender, so just like what you were explaining the last line in this Uga Boga, you said, like a child is asking, the child takes a liberty with the parent because the child has complete trust in the parent. They know that the parent is not going to disappoint them. They know that by all of these antics, by pleading, by asking, by parent is going to finally say yes. So very similarly, if you should have that kind of a trust, or you should have that complete surrender even with the divine, where you're like, I have done my part, now you take care of this, I don't care. So you giving me difficulty in my way, that's fine. But maybe there is a bigger meaning to it, like you were just talking about Bulesha and the poetry and what he talks about pain. So I think even when we allow pain to go in our system, we allow it to evolve us in a way that today it might hurt, but tomorrow it is a lesson that we are going to learn for tomorrow. So all of these bhakti poets, they have taught us so much by the way that they have communicated these things with us, and the way that you are interpreting it and teaching it, it is just absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for this. I'm sure we can sit and talk about this. And this is honestly the best conversation that I would love to have with spirituality, and how we, by talking to somebody, we kind of like decode so many things for our own selves. Something that has been hidden and locked kind of gets unlocked when the wisdom unlocks, when we talk to elevated souls. Kavi too, you were talking, when I would love to again, hear the sadhu. My friend and I, she introduced me to your music, and we were talking about this even yesterday. She said, I was meditating, and I came out of meditation, and I was in that zone, and Spotify played this for me. She said, I couldn't stop my tears. So, which is very true. And I have told you many times that I have also listened to it so many times, and I don't want to bother, but then I would still like to listen to a few lines of sadhu from you, if you don't mind.
Sure, definitely. Sadhu manush janma sudharo, sadhu manush janma sudharo, धोके काहे निहारो, ओ साधो साधो मानुष जन्म सुधारो, सुधारो मानुष जन्म सुधारो.
Unbelievable. Chandanaji, this is your own composition, right?
Melodical.
And lovely, lovely, lovely. It's beautiful. Classical purist, Carnatic classical. You had a very strong Carnatic classical background. And like we were talking about the abstract, now to branching out into jazz and extending yourself to a bigger genre. And, the Take 5 of David Brubeck, they say that you can actually time a clock to the beat of the drummer. It is so precise. And how you have classically interpreted that piece. So how did this whole, branching out happen?
So actually, yeah, like you rightly said, for a greater part of my, till up to I was maybe 21, 22 years old, I was only exploring the Indian classical, light classical folk genres only. And also, out of all those folk genres and light classical genres, it was only Carnatic classical that I was actually presenting professionally also. Though I belonged to a school which gave a lot of importance to the cultural activities, and so we were a part of light music groups, and we were singing patriotic songs, light songs, Desha Bhakti Gite, and even some shlokas and chants and stuff like that. My primary interest has always been Carnatic classical, had always been Carnatic classical music. It still is, but and I was professionally grooming myself also to be a Carnatic classical vocalist. So I was actually not emphasizing on any other genre. Though I absolutely love listening to ghazals. And Hariharanji remains one of my greatest sources of inspiration till date. And I used to listen to these ghazals. I used to try to sing some Kannada songs like ghazals because I didn't know how to pronounce Urdu, or I did not know how those songs. So I was really fascinated by, where all those murkis were coming from, the way. So I was like, I also sing gamakas, but he's also singing gamakas. But where are those gamakas being generated? How is he doing it with that kind of, that it's almost like silk, fabric of silk just falling like that with so much of ease. So I used to observe a lot, and I used to listen a lot to his music and I used to try and sing like that. But then what happens is that when you're focusing on one particular genre of music, and when you are professionally inclined, and when you're also doing it very seriously, it's important that you stick to just that genre, at least for some time, so that you develop a certain strong foothold. Like if you're trying to make, if you're trying to, become a good South Indian cook, then you cannot try and, mess with other kinds of herbs and Italian herbs and everything. You can't just try and experiment and put into your cooking. You're going to ruin its taste and its authenticity. So I kind of kept everything deliberately away from my professional interest. And that's how it was till my 24th year. But once I got married and came to Bombay, I started performing with a lot of bands. I was not really performing Carnatic as much, because in all sabhas I had sung once. But after that, for your turn to again come, it takes a while, and the wait can get really miserable for somebody who's wanting to sing, and especially for a person like me who's more of a live concert artist than a recording artist. Some people enjoy recording in studios, and that's kind of very fulfilling. But for me, I need to perform more of live. I enjoy that space much more. It kind of feeds me, and it kind of fuels my energy to practice better, learn compositions better, and stuff like that. So so I had branched out at that time, that I had started singing with different bands. I of course took my Guruji's permission and said if I could explore other. So I started singing with different bands where, so there is a jazz musician, and then there is a Hindustani tabla artist, and then there's a drummer, and then there's a bass guitarist, and then I'm adding my Carnatic element to it, and that's how it started. But then it's not for too long that you can just do only one aspect of the band. You're so influenced because you're doing, you're listening to different genres of music, that the influence is like, it's inevitable.
It's inviting.
It's inviting, exactly. So that's when I started listening to a few jazz and blues compositions, just started listening to them. And I knew that, I don't know, I mean, if I will ever be able to sing an English song, because I'm very conscious about my pronunciation, and also to work towards, pronouncing those words right and singing it in a song. Pronouncing those words right is one aspect of it, but singing them in a melody which sounds convincing, that's another, it's another sadhana actually. You have to go into a different direction of practice and everything. So I don't know whether that I would ever, I mean, I don't know. I hope to do it someday, but I don't know how much time it is going to take. But at that point, really, that was not my focus. My focus was only on the melodic side of those compositions. So I chose mostly instrumental compositions to explore. And I have a very dear friend, Sankarshan Kini. He's actually Tara Kini ma'am's son. Mm-hmm. So he actually, at that time, was working on similar lines. He was kind of translating some jazz standards into sargam and stuff like that. And so then one day I told him, listen, I've done some of these compositions have translated them into swaras. Do you want to listen? And that's how it started. And we just started kind of exchanging notes. And he had progressed a little further than I had. So he was actually showing me some of those swaras and how those transcriptions happen, and how he was transcribing them, and how he was how it was important to change the sa in jazz. It's not one standard sa; it changes with every chord change. So how those things were happening. So it was more like just researching, and exploring. And formally, I'm not trained. And I still don't claim to be a jazz singer at all. It's just that I take certain jazz compositions and I transcribe them, and I try to sing them with the Indian approach. And so that's how the entry into exploring jazz compositions happened. And it's mostly restricted to, just singing with friends and stuff like that. But I think very soon I'm going to be doing a concert which is based on these lines, of only the Sargam version of some of these jazz standards, and also certain aspects of Western music which I've kind of fused and implemented into my singing and stuff like that.
Wow.
So,
wow. And I think Carnatic music, the structure of it yields very well to jazz, isn't it? So it's
definitely, because see, both the genres, the improvisational aspect is actually the strongest. The Manodharma aspect, the way it is dealt with in Carnatic. Similarly, the Manodharma and the creative way in which a particular composition is interpreted and explored, that is very similar in both the genres. But also, having said that, they are, it is very different also structurally, because in Carnatic, you have a very linear movement, in the sense that where your sa is, and everything goes like that. Like it's like maybe, like one long palm tree or a coconut tree. That's how it goes. And of course, it has certain branches as well. It does branch out, but then it's primarily the linear fashion in which it goes. But jazz is more like a banyan tree. It starts kind of branching out very soon. The moment it starts growing, the stem starts growing, it starts branching out. So it grows in a different way. This also grows in a different way. But like structurally, there are similarities, but at the same time, there are certain differences as well. And I'm really not the authority to talk on jazz, because I have not studied theoretical aspects of it very deeply. I only love the practical, just the singing the compositions, understanding the rhythm and time signatures and the chord cycles and harmonic cycles. This is what I'm kind of more interested in.
Wow, that is already, I think you've encapsulated the whole thing in there. And somebody had recently told me about archive and repertoire. Today's repertoire is tomorrow's archive, and the transference of it is like when the authenticity of it is maintained, I guess it is relevant at all times through different generations. So no matter how historic our music is, or the different genres that you are exploring, but because of how the authenticity is maintained at any point in time, it would be relevant. That is true of anything that you sing, I think. And also, you've made great strides with giving your voice to several movie playback singing, and you have been a part of Coke Studio. So I think the path ahead is so inviting, and I think that's the best thing that can happen to anybody, is the possibility that gives us hope, that gives us energy to try and explore something. And we don't know, passion calls us, we just trust and we go.
That's true. Absolutely. Yeah.
So wonderful talking to Chandana ji, and all my best wishes for all the projects that you do. And may you do more. And I'm sure we will listen to a lot more of your music. And thank you so very much for making the time and coming to the Raga Room. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Dear viewers, we hope you enjoyed watching this episode just as much as we did bringing it to you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and follow us for more updates on www.thelagaroom.com. Thank you and have a wonderful day.